Hey guys, happy Tuesday and welcome back to New Earth Alchemy, where we are taking what was given to us and learning how to transmute it into something better, into something more, manifesting, right? So today we're going to talk about how to transmute the energy within us, namely our triggers, okay? You know what I'm talking about, being triggered, automatically reacting in violence, anger, whatever it is that is a big emotion that is a negative reaction. Even though, and I've spoken in the past lots of times about how we don't want to call anything negative, positive and negative are simply human constructs and they're not really applicable in the real world, like the universal world, how things work, how nature is, because everything has a purpose and everything just is what it is until we come along and assign positive or negative to it, right? But for all intents and purposes, we're talking about unwanted reactions. The screaming, the crying, the reacting in violence type of things. So for one, it's important to understand that these reactions are there to protect us, okay? They are our brain's attempt at keeping us safe based on past situations and circumstances that have programmed it into our subconscious that, danger, danger, must react, must protect body, person. And that is a great mechanism to have if and when we actually need it. But a lot of times we're reacting to things that are not dangerous and pose us no threat, right? So we want to minimize that happening as often as possible. But how do we get to that point? Because it's reactionary, right? It's not something you're consciously choosing to do, and you probably beat yourself up afterwards for doing it. Or else you wouldn't be here listening to this trying to figure out how to fix it and stop it, right? We don't want to hurt the people that we love. We don't want to make everybody hate us. But for now, we just can't help ourselves, can we? So, first and foremost, knowing that it is a protection mechanism and not a flaw, it is a completely natural human response based off of past traumas, okay? And in and of that self, we should not beat ourselves up about it when it happens, but just recognize it, note it, do the work to transmute it, and show up the best version we can next time. Being upset about it or angry about it or whatever, beating ourselves up is just feeding the energy and momentum to that which we don't want. It is not helpful. So forgive yourself, take a step back, and the first thing we want to do in trying to minimize these interactions and these happenings, these reactions, is first and foremost, work on the pause. I've done a ton of things on the pause and how valuable it is in every moment of every day to help with mental health and anxiety, overwhelm, stress, recalibrate into intentional and mindful choices and decisions rather than being reactionary. So we want to take the pause, the idea of the pause, the idea of taking, creating space around the moment, around the energy, around the thoughts, around the emotions, around whatever is going on right now, so that we can try and stop the reaction. And you're not always going to make that. You're not always going to be like, pause the reaction. A lot of times you're not even going to notice that you're reacting. Like you kind of know, but it's not a conscious thing, right? You're just reacting. It's a very emotionally charged moment and things are just happening and you're blinded by rage and things are just coming out of your mouth and you mean it and you're not sorry. There is an injustice done here and they need to know. It needs to be corrected. And just know that you're never going to be perfect, no matter what, no matter how much work you do here. All we can do is make progress towards being better and create and just cut ourselves some slack when we don't hit the mark that we want, okay? So we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for progress in the direction that we want. And who knows, you may find it's very easy for you to transmute this energy, and it doesn't require much work. And before you know it, you're patient all the time, and you don't ever have any reactions. There's mostly, not mostly, I don't know statistics. I'm just making stuff up right now. But you think about the peaceful, serenity, patient person, like someone that's older comes to mind for me personally, because they've had that time and the wisdom to cultivate that within themselves. So, but you also know a lot of older people that are very angry and just everything sets them off. So, everything is subjective and different for each and every individual. So you have to create your own standards for yourself, but also allow yourself some wiggle room to be human too, okay? So when you're in these moments, you may not even realize that you're in this moment, so you can't, if you don't realize it's going on, you can't really be like, oh, I need to pause. I need to pause and recalibrate. I need to pause, recalibrate, and transmute this. How do I do that? And then you start working on towards steps. But you may not realize in the present moment, it may be like a hindsight type of thing, and you're like, oh, maybe I should have paused there. But also, why did it happen? If triggers are based out of fear and past situations and circumstances, what did this particular trigger have to tell me? What was it trying to protect me from? What past situation or circumstance did this stem from? What created this pattern? I'll give you a great example in story form. So recently I took my son to the dentist to have some cavities filled. No big deal, right? Well, he's just a nervous individual about everything. So he's like, I don't know. And we had some stuff that we needed to work out through, and we were working through it, okay? I was patient. I was discussing it with him. We were working through it together the best we could through the dentist that didn't want to let me talk to my child, but we're not going to get into that. Or maybe we have to get into it a little bit. I don't want to talk crap about anybody at all, ever. So I try to dance around things and avoid that kind of stuff. But so this dentist, we were trying to work through my son's fear of getting the shot and, the numbing and the procedure, the cavities filled. And the dentist becomes tired of this and just gets up and walks out of the room. Like, okay, so, hey, now I have the opportunity and the space to actually talk to my kid, because that wasn't happening with the dentist in there. And then we worked it all out, and then about 5 minutes later, the dentist came back, and I was like, he's ready now. And he went, no, we're done here. And y'all, a switch flipped in me, and I could not control myself. Even though, I'm really proud of how I handled it this time versus how I would have handled it in the past. I may have cried, I may have yelled, I may have, who knows? But I do know that my vision around the edges went blurry, and I was angry. The next several hours, I'm talking the following 5+ hours after this happened, I did a lot of yelling, I did a lot of crying, I was just not okay. And once the dust settled, and I had cried my fill, and I was done crying, and I was done crying before I even started crying. I didn't want to cry, and we fought it. We're like, because we know crying's not going to help anything, right? It's not going to change anything. It's not going to make anything better. It's just, ugh. And now my makeup's ruined, and my face is puffy, and I still have to do things and see people, and good God, please don't let anybody notice and ask me what's going on. At least that's my mindset anyway, because I'm the warrior. I'm the soldier. Ain't nothing wrong. I got this. I'm good. But I was so not good that day, y'all. But when the dust settled and I was sitting there thinking about it, and my question was, why did that have such a reaction for me? Why was that such an ordeal? And what I came up with was a couple of things, actually. So, for one, I have a lot of dental trauma. A lot of dental trauma. Like, when I was a kid, they would strap you down to a board. Strap your arms down, strap your feet down, strap your legs, your head. You could not move a single muscle. And then they would put this thing in my mouth that held my mouth too wide, too wide, held my mouth open too wide for it to go, and it just really hurt. And I would cry, and they would leave me like this for an hour. And like without even doing any dental work yet. Like they would strap me down. I would lay there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes before they ever even came and done the stuff to me that needed to be done. And I just remember sobbing and begging them not to put the thing in my mouth. I promise I'll hold my mouth open. Couldn't scratch my nose. Oh my gosh, my nose, it was just so itchy. So fast forward back to the present moment. I am so thankful that we do not do this anymore, at least in any of the dentists that I have taken my children to or been to or whatever. And we've been to probably like 4 because I'm a little particular about how we do things in the dental stuff because of all my trauma. But also because my son keeps getting us kicked out of dentists because he cries. And he doesn't even like react. He just cries. And he takes a little bit of convincing. It's not bad. He doesn't fight. He doesn't bite. He can usually be talked through if you just give him a chance, but nobody wants to give him a chance. So this was the 3rd dentist that we'd been kicked out of because he reacted like this. And it kicks up all of my trauma from begging and pleading and just sobbing and nobody giving a shit about me. And again, don't get me wrong, this isn't one of those, I survived, so you can survive, you'll be fine type of things. No, I do not want what happened to me to happen to anybody, ever, 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 ever. But also, nobody is willing to take the time and space to help us work through these things. And I get it, y'all are busy. I get it, the dentists are busy, and they have other patients that they need to worry about. But this interaction kicked up all of my trauma around that. All of that came flooding back, and the abandonment I felt not only as a child going through this and experiencing this, because I felt, why was nobody coming to save me? Why did nobody care? Why did I have to endure this time and time and time again? But also, now here we are, and yes, things are better, but still we're being abandoned because things aren't playing out the way that the dentist wants to, right? So in my eyes, this was the 4th dentist that had failed us, okay? Abandoned us, kicked us out, said, no, you're not my people. And that's just not who I am as a person. I am a 200% committed type of person. So if I'm there with you during the good times, then I am there with you during the bad times too, okay? I understand that life is an ebb and a flow, and we can't all be perfect all of the time. So it just, if you're there for me with the good, then you're there for me with the bad. And if you're not there for me with the bad, then I don't want you with me with the good. So this process that I took to figure out why I was being triggered in the first place, analyzing it, allowing it to be transmuted, allowing myself to cry. I didn't want to cry. Crying's stupid. But it's not. It's a release of energy. Because this energy, these emotions, these traumas, these thoughts, they're all really big energy within the body that needs to then be let out of the body. Crying is a way of releasing the energy and allowing it to be transmuted. Exercise, doing things you love. There's lots and lots of ways to decompress and let it out. And that's what you want to do. You want to decompress and let it out. Maybe journal about it. Maybe talk about it with a friend a supportive friend, you know who you can talk to about these things and who you can't. Most people these days are not emotionally available for other people's emotions and processing. So, therapy's great. I've also not had great experiences with that. So if you don't get a good, just like if you don't get a good dentist the first 4 times, try a fifth. So if you don't get a good therapist, try and try again until you do, okay? Don't give up looking for someone to help you process this stuff if that's what you need. Some people don't need the help. Some people can just do it in their own heads and move on, transmute it, clear it. You have to understand it to be able to transmute it and clear it most of the time, not always, but recognizing your own patterns, where they come from, why they're there, not only to protect you, but from what? Like, what is their purpose? What are they doing? And in this instance, my patterns, my trauma, my trigger, all of that was past based, right? It came from stuff that happened in the past, which most of it all does. We're pretty clean and clear for the most part. There is ancestral trauma and patterns and stuff passed down, but most of that is learned and accumulated as we grow, usually from our caregivers even. So most of our triggers are stemming directly from something that happened in the past. And it's our subconscious trying to break that pattern and protect us from that pattern and not let it happen again. So we're thankful that they're there so that we can identify the blocks that within our body and heal, clear, transmute them so that they are a non-issue moving forward. So that back engineering analyzation is going to help you understand, and then understanding is going to help you clear and transmute and rework and rewrite and reprogram. So you can do that through affirmations and meditation, visualization, creating better stories in your head, counteracting stories. Mine was trauma and abandonment. So therefore I can flip it around with affirmations and truths like, that was in the past, that does not affect me now. I am in control. I have power. I am not abandoned. I have people in my corner. I have all the help I need. I have no need to be rescued. Just whatever the belief system that you need to reprogram is. I am safe. I am secure. I am surrounded by love. Now, does that mean that that particular trigger is never going to pop up again? Probably not. Especially if it's a big one, especially if it's a really deep-rooted one. It may take it popping up a couple of more times at least to be thoroughly clean and cleared. But next time I'm in a situation like that, it'll probably dawn on me a lot quicker than it did this time that that's what's going on, right? Because in the moment, it just feels like a grand injustice. This is not right. What's going on? Are you kidding me right now? How did this happen? Why is this happening? That kind of thing. And you're just reacting out of anger and emotions. Whereas next time I'll be prepared and I'll like, oh, okay, I'm in the dentist setting and I know that being in a dentist setting makes me a little bit fragile towards abandonment things and mistreatment things. And now that I am aware that those are my triggers, I will be more cool, calm, and collected. If those things arise, I can stop them in their tracks sooner rather than later, and it won't hurt as bad next time as it did this time. Because I did the processing this time, because I looked at it and went, okay, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did I react like that? Rather than just letting my ego take charge and waving it off as, well, they were in the wrong, so whatever, and just moving on. And that denial, that blame, placing the blame outside of yourself for those types of things leaves you open for them to repeat themselves because they didn't get their message through the first time that this was a thing that needs processing and worked through. So you're going to be blindsided again because you're not aware of the pattern that triggers for you and why. And I hated how I reacted all the way around. Like I did not react, did not handle the situation the way I would have liked to, the way I would have like walked away being like, I did good. I did not feel like I did good at all. I didn't like how I reacted to it at all. But instead of beating myself up about it, I forgave myself and allowed myself to be human, because in that moment, I wasn't my age. I wasn't an adult in that moment. I wasn't who I am now in that moment. In that moment, I was that scared little abandoned girl that I was all of those years ago. That's who was reacting in that moment. She was a child, and she was a hurt child at that, and who needed to be protected. Bless her heart. So I gave my little inner child a hug and told her that she was safe now and everything was going to be okay and that she would never have to experience that again. And then I did my best to release and let go of all of the shame, all of the fear, all of the anger, all of the emotions that were tied to that interaction and situation, circumstance. So there's no blame anywhere, okay? We don't want to put blame on someone else or ourselves or that, because that takes away our power. So I'm not blaming the dentist for how I reacted or the decisions that they made. They made the best decisions for them in that moment, I suppose. It doesn't matter. Decisions were made, things happened, things played out. We can't go back and change the past. All we can do is accept it and move on. But if we're placing blame, then we're not moving on. Placing blame on whoever, ourselves included, you hold us in the past to where it happened, in the moment it happened, and the emotions that were tied to it. We don't want to place blame on ourselves. We want to take responsibility for our actions. Forgiving ourselves, but also being like, okay, I'm going to do my best to not let that happen again. And even apologizing if it's applicable. I will not be apologizing for this. But I will take responsibility for the fact that I did it, I said it, all the whatever. And maybe if I work really hard, it won't happen again. I will try. So it's kind of a lot of work, especially if you have a lot of triggers. But it does become less work as time goes on, as things unfold. Every time you are triggered is an opportunity to do the work. It's an opportunity to be free and clear of this trigger now so that it doesn't resurface later. And with time, because all things take time, you didn't collect all of these triggers in one single instance. Most of them anyway. You'd be surprised, a lot of different triggers are often stemming from the same situation, circumstance. This is where we get like PTSD and stuff, right? But with time, if you just keep working at it and working at it, they will become fewer and fewer and further in between to where you are usually fine. You're usually able to handle things very maturely. Look at you, mature adult, not acting like a child at all. At least most of the time. And if you are, it's in a good way, right? We should all be childlike in our curiosity and our creativity and our fun, loving attitudes, humor. But we should really try hard not to be having temper tantrums all over the place and snapping at people and each other and, shooting the messenger and attacking people with energy. That's a thing, so maybe you don't get outwardly triggered as so much as you get inwardly triggered, and you hold it all in. Good for you. You don't yell, you don't lash out, but maybe you project angry energy. Passive aggressiveness is usually what this is, but you can also you can be passive aggressive attacking people with energy without even looking in their direction. So know that's a thing. Don't do that either. But in the end, just as with all things, I'm always saying, everything comes back to hyper self-awareness of the present moment. Noticing what you're doing, what you're saying, the choices you're making in every single moment, what you're thinking, your act, everything. Just be hyper aware of everything all of the time within yourself. We create our own reality. And if you're not doing it intentionally and mindfully and purposefully, you're doing it based on your previous programming subconsciously by default. And that is almost never the way you want to do it. That it's almost never the best way. Because it's more primal, right? It's more animalistic. It's more fear-based. And we want to try our best to be as heart-based, as love-based as possible, right? That brain-heart coherence that we talk about. It's been a while since we've talked about that, actually. Should we do another episode? I have an episode on it. Brain-heart coherence. It's very important. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you have thoughts or questions or anything at all that could continue the conversation, and I can always do more episodes going more in depth, addressing questions, addressing thoughts, addressing problems and troubleshooting things, because if you're having trouble with it, a lot of other people are having trouble with it too. So you bring it to my attention and we will get it covered for everyone. So good luck with all of that. Let me know how it's going. You're doing a great job. I love you so much. Namaste. I'll talk to you next week.